I don't know if you guys believe in toddlers having imaginary friends or the ability to see supernatural stuff, but this experience made me not doubt that. This happened in summer 2023, when my parents called me to look after my 4-year-old sister for a day. I'd just quit my job 3 days before this happened and planned to go in another state with my friend for better job opportunities after settling my affairs in the city I was in at the time. Zara is my 4-year-old sister, and ever since I began working, I never got that much time spending with her, let alone babysit her whenever our parents were busy. I always thought that children have this very vivid imagination and love to involve a lot of things in the way they play, especially some made-up names for their toys, until this happened. I was doing the dishes after having lunch, and she was at the dining table playing with her dolls. She then started talking as if she was having a conversation with someone, asking, "Do you want lemonade?" At first, I thought she was talking to me, so I started responding to her and said, "I just had lemonade." But then she said with a slight giggle, "No, Charlie." I turned around and saw her pointing at the staircase, but there was no one there. I just started thinking that it was her imagination, or she's just pointing at another doll close to it. I took her to the living room, switching on the TV, and made her watch Barney to keep her occupied while I go make a bottle of milk for her. She usually goes to take a nap in the afternoon, so I prepared her bed in the living room and her favorite big teddy bear that she always sleeps around with. Around 2 p.m., she started yawning, hugging her teddy. I was watching her flat on the couch while also starting to get a little drowsy. She fell fast asleep after a few minutes. I went on to close my eyes to get a short nap break and plan to wake before she does. But what happened next made me question a lot of things. My body began to feel cold, as if someone just maxed out the air conditioner inside the living room. But as I was about to get up, a sudden force went to me, as if there's something preventing me from waking up. I mean, I can feel the fabric of the couch, and obviously I was aware of myself that I was awake. I started to sweat out of panic, and I didn't have any clue what was going on. I then felt a pressure on my chest, slowly getting heavier every time I breathed. It felt like someone was performing a CPR on me, but instead of the up and down motion, it just felt like 2 hands having constant pressure on my chest. I heard Zara laugh and mentions Charlie, saying, "Jump, Charlie, jump." Fortunately, I had the chance to move my legs and tried turning myself to the side. With my effort, I managed to fully awaken myself by violently turning to side and getting up after counting to 3. I opened my eyes and saw Zara staring at me, all in disbelief. But what she told me next left me shaken. She said to me in an innocent tone with a smile and said, "Charlie was on you." I gave her a smile and headed to the kitchen to drink some water. I looked at the clock and I didn't realize that I was in that paralyzed state for an hour and a half. I contacted my childhood friend, Marcus, to come over and made a lame excuse to just hang out. When he arrived and told him of what happened, he eagerly suggested to pay a visit to the church. My parents weren't devout Catholics, and we don't occasionally go to church during Sundays, so you can say that we're not the religious type of people like everyone perceived Catholics are. But I decided to take his advice instead and thought it was better than doing nothing. When my parents got home, I immediately went back to my apartment with Marcus and played Call of Duty and tried to get what happened out of my mind for a brief while. Sunday came. I took Zara with me for the morning mass along with my girlfriend. After the mass had ended, we'd asked the priest to bless us before we headed home. I got the chance to talk to him about my experience, and he explained to me in great detail that most spirits love innocence because they're the ones that can be easily deceived and are usually the ones that can do more sin or harm to other if left unguided. He later then gave us 3 rosaries. We constantly went to church every Sunday, and amazingly, Zara stopped mentioning Charlie and stopped seeing him. I haven't told my parents about what happened, well, maybe because I don't know how to start, but making them see us go to church every Sunday made them want to join in, and that's where I started telling them. Sorry if this was more of a testimony rather than a story, but whenever I look back at what happened, I definitely say it really changed me for the better. Take care, and always put God first.
Hi, Stranger Files. I want to share a story about something that happened to me 10 years ago. I was 16 at the time. We lived in the same house for as long as I could remember, and honestly, I don't think I'll ever leave it. The reason is more sentimental than practical. You see, my grandparents bought this house, and they were the ones who took care of me whenever my dad was working abroad as a structural engineer. My mom passed away from lung cancer when I was just 3, so my grandmother became my mother figure growing up. Sadly, it wasn't for long. She fell ill, and I had to watch her health decline until she passed away when I was 10. But I never thought my grandmother would give me an experience that was both the scariest and heartwarming of my life. It all started nearly 5 years after she died. Summer had just started, and I invited a few friends over for a sleepover. We decided we were going to spend the summer taking turns sleeping at each other's houses, starting at mine. We laid our mattresses out in the living room, and my dad treated us by ordering some pizzas and drinks later that evening. At 6'2" and 250 pounds, anyone would be intimidated by him. He's basically the normal-looking tough guy from the outside, but he's a huge softy at heart when you get to know him. When one of my friends arrived, he was acting pretty strange. He kept glancing out the window every few minutes, and we started to get a little anxious about him. We asked him what was wrong, joking around and asking if there were some school bullies waiting outside to give him a wedgie. He finally told us that on his way over, he got a really bad vibe from a group of guys about half a kilometer away. He said all 4 of them were staring at him maliciously and looked like the kind of thugs your mother warns you to stay away from. He also noticed they were driving a beat-up, muddy 90s-style green van with no license plates. He tried to just walk away, but once he was about 100 meters down the road, the green van started following him. He panicked, ran, and took a shortcut through the woods that led directly to our backyard to lose them. He hadn't told us right away because he didn't want to scare us. We tried to convince him that it was probably just some guys trying to prank him and that it was nothing to worry about. Later that evening, we put on a movie that my friend Tasha recommended. Lara cooked some popcorn in the kitchen before we started the movie. When she came back to the living room, she told us that our dog outside was acting pretty strange. I just told her that it might have seen a cat or a neighbor walking past by. We watched the movie while tucking ourselves in. We all ended up falling asleep near the end of it. I don't know what time it was, but what happened next left me terrified. I was sleeping on my back with my arms at my sides, and I suddenly felt freezing cold. I was in that weird state between being half asleep and half awake, and I could hear crickets chirping outside. I felt one of my friends moving nearby, but I couldn't move my own body at all. It felt like I was pinned down from head to toe. Even though it was freezing, I started sweating cold and began to cry silently, just feeling the tears run down the sides of my face. But after a few seconds, I heard a familiar voice coming from the direction of the couch. I didn't quite catch the first few words, but it sounded exactly like my grandmother calling out to me. A few seconds later, I felt a soft touch on the top of my head, just like the way she used to stroke my hair to help me fall asleep when I was little. Suddenly, I was able to move one of my feet, and I felt a huge wave of relief. A couple of seconds after that, I heard one of the doors open and the kitchen light clicked on. I thought it was just my dad grabbing a glass of milk. As I gently turned my head toward the kitchen, I slowly opened my eyes. My vision was blurry from crying, but I could clearly see the silhouette of a hooded person in the living room, slowly peeking out at us. In that moment, I realized it definitely wasn't my dad. Then, my grandmother's voice spoke to me again in a concerned tone, saying, "Call your father." I jolted, fully awake, and screamed for my dad. I yelled so loudly that I gave myself a sore throat for the rest of the morning. The hooded person immediately rushed from the kitchen to the back door and slammed it shut behind him. We were all wide awake at this point, and we heard my dad speeding down the stairs, switching the lights in the hallway. He had grabbed his trusty shotgun, which had a flashlight attached to it. He quickly asked if we were okay. Then he violently threw open the back door, ran outside, and we heard him firing a few warning shots into the air. He came back inside and told us to call 911. Laura whispered, asking, all confused, "What the heck just happened?" I just started crying as my brain tried to process everything. My friends comforted me and told me to just lay down and relax until I was ready to talk. My dad gave me some milk to help me calm down and gently asked me what I saw. I told him everything that happened, probably exaggerating a little, as any scared teenager would. The cops arrived about an hour later and interviewed all of us. I told them my side of the story, but when my dad told his side, the hair on the back of my neck stood up. My dad told the police that he woke up because he felt someone tap him on the top of his head just before he heard me scream. He also mentioned that earlier in the day, he had been suspicious of a green van constantly driving slowly past our house, which one of our friends mentioned earlier, but he wasn't there when my friend told about it, which was why he kept his gun right beside his bed. When he ran outside to fire the warning shots, he saw that same van hiding behind a tree in our front yard. My friend also told the cops about the guys in the green van who followed him. He gave them a really good description of the men. We still haven't known who those guys were or what their goal was entering our home, but knowing that my grandmother was still looking out for us even after she had passed away is the most heartwarming thing she's ever done. I'm 26 now, and I still remember that night like the back of my hand. I was never a believer in the paranormal or supernatural before, but after that experience, it solidified me into one. I visit her at the cemetery very often, and I always keep her pictures hung up around the house. I'm married to a fine man now, and have 2 wonderful kids. We now run a ranch business next to our property and plan to build a cottage for my dad not far from the house, like he always dreamed. For those of you listeners who still have their grandparents beside them, cherish them with all your life and give them the love they deserve before they say their final goodbye. God bless and make peace.